Hello and welcome to another episode of the djproject Criterion Collection. And we are going to talk about Spine 102. Yes, we're now breaking into the hundreds now. 102, The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, directed by Louis Buñuel, 1972. If you've ever seen the film Metropolitan, there's a part where Charlie Black talks about how the bourgeois are more often than not criticized and vilified, but yet but as a class, they're responsible for everything good that has happened over the last 4 centuries, and how and he mentions the discreet charm of the bourgeoisie, and he initially thought, before he saw it, he thought, finally, somebody's going to tell the truth about the bourgeoisie, and then he ends up being disappointed. Allegedly, this was a sentiment that was shared by its writer, producer, director, with Stillman. And in a way, I agree. I feel closer to Charlie in some respects. And maybe this is the difference between being American and being European. Being European, now, I've not been to Europe. I'll put that caveat out there. So it may come off as ignorant twaddle. But I do think that there's some basis for what I'm about to say. The sense of class, the impression I get is that for Europe, class does leave its mark, and that social mobility is not something that's entirely common. It's more the Cinderella scenario is in some respects a rarity, and when it does happen, it's one, very spectacular, and two, it's often marked with some slings and arrows here and there. So I think the European understand. So in other words, I think the European understanding of bourgeois is different than perhaps an American understanding of the bourgeois. And yet, this is a film that won the best foreign film Oscar for 1972. So maybe there's not that much of a difference. Okay, here's what it comes down to. For me, I like the idea of rising as far as your talent is able to do so. In other words, you can achieve success on your own terms, and I feel that that's more important. Or even better, to live your life on your own terms and not on somebody else's. So, if I do get into a position where where I have a better, I have a better domicile, I can do more things, maybe a little bit more expensive things, then I shouldn't somehow be ashamed of this. Hopefully, being able to do those things comes as a result of hard work and perseverance, and I'm reaping the rewards. I'm enjoying the fruits of my labor. I shouldn't have to feel ashamed of this. Economics is not zero sum. Or to use a metaphor that P.J.R. Rourke has used. If I order a pizza, I do not have to eat the box as well. My future wealth will not come at the expense of somebody else's. So in a sense, for me, I look at the supposed 1% or those who are up to the top, and I think, hey, that's pretty cool, in some respects. That said, I don't mind at all, in fact, the occasional absurdist critique on the things that are worthy of critiquing. And this film definitely does this. And first off, for the film itself, it's basically a long it's a long, elaborate dream sequence of sorts, and the ongoing, reoccurring conflict is these 6 friends. They're all bourgeois, of course, in a variety of different shades, but essentially they're all bourgeois. And they're what they constantly strive for is to have a meal together, and for whatever reason that never happens. It's very much like it's very much no exit, waiting for Godot, just the thing that never, the unattainable. The unattainable aim, and then for their case, it's having dinner. You have a situation where the restaurant they go to, the owner had died. One day, military maneuvers show up, and this one troop shows up at their house, interrupting the dinner. They get arrested. Robbers come in and shoot them. There's all kinds of weird absurdities that happen. In addition to these absurdities, there's absurdities in their actions, and this is where the critique comes in. For instance, there's on occasion talk about doing things properly. That there's a certain procedure to dinner. There's a certain way that you drink a martini. There's a certain way that you prepare a martini, which, by the way, was a favorite drink of Louis Buñuel. And so much emphasis is placed on how things should be done, and it's all very superficial. But it completely ignores the fact that there is an undercurrent of vice that never is, that seems to be allowed to run rampant. For instance, there's one of the friends happens to be an ambassador of this country called Miranda. It's supposed to be in Latin America. I think in so many words you can kind of, well, actually this was before Chile, so it's not there, but this came around the time, or it certainly anticipated a lot of the military dictatorships that would come about in Latin America. So it's kind of a stand-in for all of what was going on there. But anyways, this ambassador is pursued by a female terrorist, or a female who is alleged to be part of this this guerrilla group, terrorist group, whatever you want to call it. I'll get into a little bit of that later. But anyways, so he's and his country is constantly insulted. And he also uses his diplomatic immunity and his diplomatic pouch to smuggle cocaine into Europe. And actually, 2 of his friends are the drug pushers. So with all this, so the point is that with all of this talk about doing things properly and having proper order and proper graces and everything, you could still sell cocaine to anybody, and this calls into question. Okay, so what is really the basis of your morality? And it seems to be that the basis of their morality is I'm in charge, or what the golden rule is: whoever has the gold makes the rules. And this is what you come away with. And so you have that. You have sex also plays a minor role in some things. This one attempt at having dinner, the thing that interrupts that is the host couple. They wanted to have a quick one before they arrived, and in their efforts to try to get a quick one, it then leads into this misunderstanding that somehow they had to get away because potentially the police would come after them for the drugs or something, and then the rest of the party leaves, and then when they come back, the whole party is ruined. So it gives you an idea of how this whole thing is built on absurdity and dreams and so forth. And that's really it. I mean, and I mean, every episode is either um, an absurdist situation or a major non sequitur sidetrack where somebody is talking about their childhood, or somebody's talking about a dream that they had, or a particular custom. It just really is it's plotless and loose, and yes, it has been compared with Monty Python, particularly Monty Python's Flying Circus. But it should be pointed out that actually these are part of a supposed trilogy of films where Buñuel goes into absurdist mode, and it's viewed that this is going back to his surreal roots, which I wouldn't necessarily call this surreal. There's nothing about it that strikes me as being surreal. It's certainly absurd, and it certainly plays on surreal like elements, but I wouldn't call this a surrealist film necessarily. But nevertheless, Buñuel made this trilogy of films, which they're all supposed to comment on the modern life and modern value, or what is considered valued and so forth. This is one of them. The other two being the Milky Way and the Phantom of Liberty. And the thing that ties them together is its use of absurdity and absurd elements, and there's certainly a lot of absurd elements. I would say probably. I mean, like I said, I like it when things are critiqued that need to be critiqued. Again, the arbitrary morality, this emphasis on the surface and doing things in a proper way, and keeping people in their little boxes. Again, I don't like boxes. Seeing people as being part of a particular class and so forth, and not really looking at people in their own terms, which then leads into what I think the two major problems I have with the film. And the film itself is fine. I'm not going to deter you away from looking at it, but this is something that I see is the shortcoming of the film. This is what prevents me from calling this the greatest film ever, or one of the greatest films ever. One, it depends a lot on one-sided caricatures. I mean, these aren't really real flesh and blood people. They just embody a particular stereotype or a particular set of traits, and not much else. This is not a film of depth. But then again, I don't think it pretends to be a film of depth. But you do notice, certainly I noticed the one-sided caricatures where there's nothing really redeeming about them at all, and so they're engaged in this. They're engaged in this futile effort to try to have dinner, but it's always thwarted for whatever reason. And in the end, you almost feel like, you know what? Let the buggers starve. Or actually, I'm just thinking of this right now. The lyrics to Pink Floyd's "Dogs." Do I want to start from the beginning? I guess. I'll do the first two verses. You got to be crazy. You got to have a real need. You got to sleep on your toes when you're on the street. You got to be able to pick out the easy meat with your eyes closed. Then moving in silently, downwind and out of sight. You got to strike when the moment is right without thinking. And after a while, you can work on points for style, like the club tie and the firm handshake, the sudden look in the eye and an easy smile. You have to be trusted by the people that you lie to, so that when they turn their backs on you, you get the chance to put the knife in. You got to keep one eye looking over your shoulder. You know it's going to get harder as you get older. But in the end, you'll pack up, fly down south, hide your head in the sand, just another sad old man all alone dying of cancer. I mean, that's really what I feel like these characters will end up doing, and that's what they have done, and that's what they will do. And sometimes there are scenes and moments that do feel like just a cipher for expressing whatever Buñuel wants to express, including his love for martinis, his sun moon sign combination, is expressed there, and also his dislike for the cello, which is probably one of the big things that makes me feel ambivalent ultimately towards Louis Buñuel. He really hated the cello, and he made that known at a particular moment. So there's a one-sided caricature, and then the other thing I would say that I think it assumes that the problems of the world are due to the systems we build. And it's a very Rousseau idea that it's this notion that man is inherently free of corruption, but it's the systems he's built that makes him corrupt, which then begs the question, why would a perfect man build something that would taint himself or destroy himself? Whereas what I believe, and this is why I don't totally reject this film, or I could see the value in the critiques. Whereas human nature is there are flaws and there are problems, and we have these tendencies to do nasty things to ourselves and to each other, but there is a way to improve that and to rise above it, and part of it is acknowledging that in ourselves, admitting that to ourselves, and making an effort to turn around and to change that. And yes, I will go one step further and say that this comes from having a relationship with God. That's the only way that you can do this. This is not something that you can do entirely on your own. You need some help. You need a help and a push in a particular in the right direction. So to that I say that it is possible to have, like I said earlier, it is possible to have the perks, as you were, to have that discreet charm, as it were, without buying into the corruption, without coming off like an asshole and doing stupid, silly things, and even finding yourself into absurd situations. So, but again, I think this is probably from the viewpoint of an American, where social mobility is more possible to do. It is possible to rise or to be in a better position than you were starting out, through perseverance, through hard work, through talent, by interacting with by who you know, and so it's a combination of those things that you're able to rise, and you're not necessarily stuck in one particular position. And likewise, just because you are in a top position does not mean that you're necessarily going to stay there, that it is possible to fall from a great height. So I think it's because of that I have the reservations I have on the film. And again, it's a one-sided caricature. It's also pinning on on one group of people all the sins and all the vices of the world, as if they are truly responsible for all the ills of the world. Whereas it's, the ills of the world are a little bit more complicated. Basically, we're all culpable of this. We're all in this together. It's not just one set of people. It's everybody. Everybody's had a hand in making things miserable, myself included. Mea culpa. Mea culpa, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. But I want to do less of that. So, and again, the aim of the good art is when it can reveal that, it can reflect that back onto you, and then you can look at it and go, okay, do I continue down this path, or do I do something different? So in that sense, it does work on that level, but it does it in a very limited, somewhat narrower way. So there you go. And last thing I promise, this unfortunately is another title that went out of print because it was, again, Studio Canal. And actually I got this very early on when I started to add Criterion titles to the list. And I picked this one because it is a major Buñuel film, and it was my way of leaving. It was my way of acquiring a particular marker, and then from there I could branch out into other things. Do I want to do more? Do I want to get more of him? Do I want to get less of him? And so really it was just kind of on that level. And so I definitely don't regret. I certainly don't regret purchasing it at all. And in spite of my reservations, I do find it enjoyable in a certain respect. But anyways, but like I said, like I've said before in other instances, these are all my thoughts and impressions, and you can take them for whatever they're worth. So yeah, the Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. And until next time, take care.